Well, hey there, Aletheia Church. Hope that you guys are doing well. I just want to spend a few minutes unpacking and reviewing my sermon from Sunday, which was the third part of our We Are Aletheia series, where we looked at 1 Peter chapter 2, and we talked about how we value gospel community as a church. And so, first and foremost, I spent some time just defining what gospel community is, and I'll let you guys unpack that a little bit more in your group. But the big things that I wanted us to focus in on during our time on Sunday morning was just the importance of gospel community, the call that we see in Scripture to gospel community, and then last and not least was how gospel community is both unique in relation to other types of community that we see in life, but also that it is powerful in our lives and in the lives of others. And so, first and foremost, I just want you to spend some time talking through this idea of what community really is and what gospel community is as well, and spend some time unpacking that and how really innately we are created for community by God. That Scripture teaches us that fact by the fact that we are both made in God's image and likeness, and He designed and created us not to be alone. He also mentions throughout Scripture how important community is for things like wisdom and accountability. And so it's not shocking that we see people longing for community just naturally and yet not knowing where and how to find it. And so what we say is we look for what God tells us to be true about community, and we want to follow it and be obedient to that. And so we gather together as the church because we were created for community and we need it. And hopefully you'll spend some time talking about people pushing back against church community and why the church can be such a difficult place for people. But I also want you to spend some time talking about the call to gospel community, that not only are we designed for it and need it, but God actually calls us as His people to be a part of the church, to be in gospel community. And we looked at multiple scriptures. We looked at Titus chapter 2, verse 14, where Paul says that God gave Himself to us to redeem us from all lawlessness, that we were reconciled, but that also that was done to purify for Himself a people for His own possession who are zealous for good works, meaning that God both saved us from our sin and rebellion, but He also saved us to community, to be God's people and to live freely for Him. We saw Paul say something similar in Acts chapter 26, and we see the same thing in Ephesians chapter 2. So spend some time breaking that down about how we see that the gospel communicates to us. This is the good news, right? The gospel declares the good news of what God has done to reconcile us to God, but it also declares the good news that we are called as God's people to gather together in community to advance the message of Jesus and His mission. The last thing we see is that there is uniqueness and power in gospel community. And we unpacked Acts chapter 2, verses 42 through 47 to really work through that. But what we saw is that true gospel community provides accountability and overcoming sin. It provides greater knowledge of God so that we might grow in faith. It provides really provision for us in times of need, and that it provides us a united opportunity for mission. And so hopefully you guys have already been living this out. You already see what our gospel communities do and why we do it, that we break bread together, we spend time together, we know what's going on in one another's lives, and we worship Him together, hoping to make much of Him. This makes us distinct and unique from any other community out there because it is better than just good community being friends with people. I hope that you'll have a great time just talking about the importance of this and how if we do this well, it's life-giving not just to us, but to those who don't know God. I love you guys. Have a great week. Go and be the church.